Hello and welcome to the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at some intermediate concepts, mainly looking at certain openings in the lane, certain manipulations of the first wave specifically that you could be doing, along with jungle intervention. We're going to be looking at the pacing of the game and some more slightly more advanced concepts from the previous lessons that we have already discussed. Again, if you haven't watched those previous lessons and are looking to develop a baseline solid fundamental knowledge of the game, I highly recommend you watch briefly the last few sessions. Again, a lot of the concepts that I discuss in this session are heavily discussed in detail in the first 7 sessions. The VOD reviews are rather quick. I do use certain pieces of language that, again, if you don't know the meaning to, feel free to ask. I will make sure I answer all comments below. Now, in the first VOD, I do want to give you a disclaimer. This first VOD was done, this was an ADC VOD. This was with a Kaisa player. This is a Twitch viewer of mine who wanted a speed review. This is a quick 10-minute review in a rather informal setting. I do want to, again, say this as a disclaimer. I do use harsh language in the first VOD. You are going to notice some level of profanity. You may notice even some level of unprofessionalism. Any tone that I use is not necessarily in regards to being rude towards the client. Rather, it's just more of a stream persona. And again, the language is slightly harsh, so just be aware, again, as a disclaimer. For the second VOD, I did professionally record it. And the second VOD will be with, again, SHOWMAKER on Yasuo against Renekton. And the first VOD that we're going to go into is which is going to be the bot lane example. We're going to be looking at a Master Tier Kaisa at 200 LP. Let's get into it.
Like, see how these casters are hitting your one bottom caster minion? So the only time you're gonna take aggro is like now. Like now you can take aggro. Right? Like you take aggro now, yeah. Because these minions may actually shift their aggro towards you. It gives you easier access to the minions, give you easier pockets of space. Set randomly uses E, you should auto him. Yep, good. Hold the wave up. It's okay, doesn't matter. You don't have to auto here, because if you auto here, you're actually accelerating the lane too deep. Mainly because if you auto now and the casters end up taking, like, if you accelerate the push anymore, it's just gonna be like really awkward. So there's no reason to accelerate the push. Just chill. You guys might actually end up crashing on second wave. I would also recommend just dropping ward on top side, because Rengar is starting bottom side, but he can easily 3-camp bottom. Okay? Mainly because it's gonna be like, yeah, he can still kill top and he can still do stuff here. It's a lot easier to just go like this on third wave for Rengar. So during this position where these two waves are aligning, walk up, just drop a ward here, and then go back to laning, because you're gonna have a really awkward time moving up to lane if Rengar ends up, if you're constantly under that threat of Rengar showing up, right? So like you could just be warding at any time. Like you're never gonna hit him here. Autoing them doesn't give you any benefit here, so just go and drop the ward, because it's too dark and it's too easy for Rengar to just randomly show up and make the whole lane a mess. Mainly because he doesn't get punished for anything, right? Like if Rengar shows up, starts fighting you guys fucking randomly level 2, he just pushes you in, right? He pushes you in. This guy gets prio because Victor into Yone. Victor can easily get prio, and now all of a sudden your jungler can't play bottom side anymore. It's like pretty much the winning move for the enemy team. Like, there's no reason for Rengar not to do that. There's no reason for Rengar not to either just run to Zack's jungle to fight him, and there's no reason for Rengar not to just mess up your lane in the process of doing so, because he can gain prio from this. There's like, you see it all the time, but that's you see it more in higher elo solo queue. You see it in like, when you watch solo queue at the highest levels, you'll see it more often because people will actually utilize these openings. Whereas in like 100, 300, you're not really going to see it much. Or at least I haven't seen it from playing in that range. But Rengar shows up, he fucks you guys, and then he just runs to Zack's jungle. Victor pushes in, Zack can't play, and then it's like, okay, well, whatever. Game is like lost. But you can prevent that. To a degree, you can prevent that with 1, you have prio, and 2, you can drop the ward on the second wave. So yeah, you can actually push up with your level 2 lead here. But pushing up now without like any Ward is really shit. Now, obviously, Rengar still can't hit you, but eventually, once Samira and Set are able to kill off the 3 front lines, it's like a little bit scary. You're also never going to be able to cheat a recall here. Mainly because I think that the second wave was crashing too fast. Right, so that's another reason, like, you're playing second wave way a little too quickly, which is unfortunate because of how wave 1 was played out. But you don't have to auto. You just don't have to auto. I guess hitting them is fine, but you fucking queued the second wave. Okay, look, I really think that if you slow down this wave, and if the third wave can arrive, you can lock it somewhere here, and then you can just kill the whole thing, making sure that, of course, we warded earlier, and you find a base on that. That's doable. Because if you can find a base on that, your next move after your base is to just go like this into Zach's blue buff. That's like the only fucking alternative I see. But you can you can push 2, right? You can push 2, but you don't gain anything from pushing 2. You don't actually, nothing ends up winning. Like, the lane is just kind of whatever. The only thing you've prevented is like an invade, maybe. So you ward, sure, whatever. That's 2v2 mid lane, by the way, so you should be looking mid lane. Rengar should show mid lane, like, right now. But Rengar doesn't show mid lane. So it's very weird to me. Okay, Rengar hasn't showed mid. Why? Why is Rengar not playing 2v2 with mid lane here? Like, why is Rengar not... Like, you'll see the elo difference. Rengar should be here, but he's not. He's probably in our jungle. He's in our jungle, or he's in topside. If he's topside, he's pretty bad. If he's in our jungle, he's kind of slow. Because he didn't cover 2v2. Oh, what is happening? Oh, you just call Zach here. Look, okay, if Rengar doesn't show in your bottom side jungle, you tell Zach to just immediately come on the 4th wave. Because at that point, if Rengar isn't in our bottom side jungle, we know exactly where he's at. He's definitely on top side. Because we assume that he started bottom. Or based on the information we had, he started bottom. Yeah, see? So we already addressed the fact that he was leashed in bottom. Which means that because he hasn't, if he doesn't show in bottom jungle, he's definitely in his top side jungles. We're using his lack of presence to know exactly where he is. Which means that if you play for the 4th wave, if we gank bottom on 4th wave and 4th wave is just arriving, you're gonna get a kill without any response from the opposing team. And then what you do is you just make sure your top laner is chilling, right? Well, not you specifically, but you as a collective team. Look at Rumble, see that he's full HP, knows that the wave is bouncing. Okay, great, maybe we go ahead and kill bottom. Let's say the gank accelerates to like closer to the 430 mark. At that point, what happens in the game is, let's say the gank happens on the 4th wave, really simple. You push out, or maybe you retain the freeze. I don't fucking know how the wave's gonna look like, you know, in advance. But you get a good favorable lane state in bottom because you have move on the bottom lane. Zach doesn't take his jungle, he bases and then runs straight to topside for the shove out. And this is when his 2 topside camps will also end up respawning. And the longer that Rengar spends in topside, the more efficiency he's losing, because his bottom side camps will be the ones that respawn next. Okay? So a gank on the 4th wave would be pretty like really good here. But you gotta call him for the 4th wave gank here, right? So like right now, you know the river is absolutely dark for the opposing side. You know they've never gotten vision down there because they never pushed up towards you, never had an angle to get vision down there. So instead of being on wolves, tell him to get the fuck off wolves and get down here. This guy should be scouting his blue buff immediately to see if he's actually gotten invaded or not, because he knows he can gank. He should just be taking blue buff and then running bottom. If Zach takes blue buff and runs bottom immediately on the 4th wave, he can sequence his 2nd rotation camps in a way where his wolves and his grump line up in a way where he's not wanting to kill himself. Like mentally, okay? So taking wolves here with the lane state like this is actually like pretty bad by you not to just call him for a gank. Now he wants to go into blue buff, but it's like, okay, there's just no reason. Why the fuck are we not already ganking? Okay, so now Rengar shows. So we see Rengar on the map. That's expected. Oh, who would have fucking thought? In what world does Rengar want a full clear? Makes no sense to him, especially if Rumble can space it. So randomly, it's not even random. It's expected that he shows in the bottom side jungle. You guys need to look. 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 This is troll by you. I don't see why we're not already paying attention to the fight. I understand that you're all inning, and I understand that you're trading here, but I don't agree with, like, after this, like, you know, it's over. You're not trading. So the click up is useless. Like, you're never going to get stacks on him. He's going to have to be bronze for you to kill him. So if that's the case, just kill this minion off and run to topside. You need to look at the fight. Maybe that's first blood for you. Or, not first blood, because, you know, you guys already have a kill. But maybe that's a kill for you. So you should definitely be looking there. Alright, so Zach dies. Like, what if you guys are moving here? What? Like, it's possible. Jonah can keep going, but you guys are not moving, so it's like really shit. Enemy team is winning this because they're keeping you engaged. Now Pantheon's moving, but it's like, who gives a shit? Like, now it's not really good because now Victor is moving. This is int now by you. Yeah, it's just int for your team. It's just lost. Yeah, it's just fucking lost. Oh, you lose game, just FF. Yeah, see, like, that's not good. I mean, that actually didn't go that bad. Like, it didn't go as bad as it could have gone, but it's still bad for you guys because you flipped it. But not immediately moving. Oh, actually, it worked out. So, I mean, you guys actually go even, but you shouldn't have gone even. The situation was really, really ugly. This could be prevented if you just pay attention more. Again, if you disagree, you just write it in chat. This is all like, yeah, just go gank. Oh, there we go. I mean, dropping a ward is a little bit hard to do. If you survive this, oh my god. I mean, this is really just the fact that there's no vision here. I really believe that with the way the wave is looking right now, I don't think that it's difficult for you to just ward. Mainly because you have to assume what the opposing side can get away with, because their next intent is to crash. So if they're gonna crash the wave, it looks funny now that we are reviewing it, but it's not that simple to think about in game. Okay. Yeah, it's not that simple. It's really not. So enemy has to crash this wave, right? And you guys want to retain the wave before the next wave arrives. Rengar at this point is more than likely somewhere in bottom side, considering it's 4:48. His bottom side spawned around 15 seconds ago, or 16, 17 seconds ago, which means that most likely what's happening here, most likely what's going to occur is a 3v3, okay? And it's going to occur during the process of this wave getting pushed into the enemy. That's why you're going to see your Zac just beelining down, right? But we have to assume that Rengar, again, because we're playing in Master Tier and Grandmaster +6 eventually, that our enemy laners are kind of human, and they're not going to just make mistakes, and we have to respect them. Which means that Rengar should just be right here. Like, he should just be waiting for Zac to engage. Which means that you should not be going in for a 3v3 gank. The difference before this, like, watch this shit. Before this whole fiasco. See, on the 4th wave... Where the fuck is it? On the 4th wave, this gank is not contested. Because what's gonna happen? And I'm kind of I'm saying this again, but I'm contrasting this situation with the next situation because there is a difference. And the difference is you should take a fight in one and not take a fight in the other. In this situation, you can take the fight because this guy's gonna beeline like this. Now, if he runs into an empty jungle, if Zac runs into an empty jungle and Rengar is not there, we know Rengar's here. Which means that this 2v2 is now automatically a 2v3, no contest. If Rengar shows, you see him faster, you can move, Rengar's doomed. You actually move faster to this. Okay? Now, at that point, you're still winning because you can collapse on him, right? Now, the whole fight happens. We don't care about this because this was just executed like shit and you guys shouldn't even be fighting like that. This situation is contested. Okay? Because why is this contested? Well, Rengar is not a fucking moron. Okay, Rengar is not a bronze player. Rengar knows his bottom side is up. Rengar knows this wave is pushing in, so he's most likely just gonna wait for you to come back down. He's gonna be in the brush, and he's gonna wait for his bottom lane to get the shove out. If Zac engages, and you guys engage, and you full send the fucking fight, you will lose bot lane. So you don't want to fight here. Here, you let them crash, if they full send it, but you contest the crash. You still auto. It's not like you don't auto the minions, but you're not going to prevent the crash. That's something that you have to know, mainly because the wave is too big. But enticing a gank here is borderline win trade, because you will never win 3v3. Not in a million fucking years do you win 3v3. And then telling your jungler to come down here is just, you're gonna lose the game, man. This is how you lose it.
So that was the informal VOD with the ADC. Again, I do apologize for the slight white noise in the back. And again, it won't happen for the next videos. And again, if you have any questions about the first informal VOD that I did, go ahead and, again, comment in chat. I can take a look and I will try to answer as many questions as possible. Any of the advice that I did give the player, although sounded harsh, I did mean in good faith. And again, I do want to make sure that anyone that I do give advice or anyone that I do personally end up coaching does succeed. And so now, with that in mind, or with that said, we're going to now move on to the second VOD. The second VOD is going to be a Yasuo VOD against Renekton, a relatively difficult matchup, a very volatile matchup, and we're going to be talking mainly about how one mistake can lead to a snowball effect, how to prevent certain issues or mistakes from happening in the lane, and of course some micro concepts in the lane. We're going to be discussing some pockets, some clicks, some micro stuff that you may have not already seen me discuss in the past. So let's get into it. Renekton matchup is going to be a melee versus melee mid lane matchup. We're going to be talking about a few subtle aspects of the lane here. So keep up and let's go ahead. Now, when we enter the lane here, we can do a number of things. We do outrange the Renekton with our Q. We have to be careful, mainly because Renekton does have very easy lethal damage that Evelynn plus Yasuo or Evelynn plus Renekton can do onto Yasuo, and it'll pretty much instant kill him. And so we have to be very careful with our spacing. Of course, as you can see, we can see the cleanse being brought out of respect for the opposing laner here. Now, when we approach the lane, we can do a number of things. We do outrange the Renekton Q with our own Q if we end up hitting it from max range. So we do have that slight range advantage, that slight amount of space that we can go ahead and play with here. But in the lane, as you can see, you can approach this through one of two ways, really. The first way you can approach this from, and this is very subtle kind of thing you can do the wave, is you can walk up, and of course you can catch aggro of this first melee. And if you do this, then what ends up happening here is instead of the melee aggroing your melee, what's going to happen, it'll aggro you. And then what ends up happening here is even if you hit it once, you can essentially drag it down, and this will allow you to hit the minion closer to your angle instead of the wave being somewhere here and you have to move up to actually get the last hits off. Of course, making sure you're getting a push lead in this lane is going to be very vital, mainly because Renekton's level 2 is going to be able to outpower you very easily as a level 1 Yasuo. Now, in the alternative sequence here, we're going to see that the SHOWMAKER here actually goes ahead and delays his first minion here. And what this allows you to really potentially do is it allows these two minions to end up hitting this first minion, which allows your blues to kill off reds faster, therefore assisting in that slight push advantage. Okay, so both techniques, rather subtle, can pull the wave closer to you, allowing you to get essentially the same goal, the goal being killing the minions with relative ease without getting punished too hard by, with our movements here. So as we can see, we're going to be rushing the Berserker Greaves, I'm assuming, and we are just going to try to space up and down. As you can see here, he's looking for the Q, up and down movement, looking for the Q. If he does end up landing Q again, he's going to continue to work on these three frontline minions. Launches the Q, finds the bone pitting, backs up, catches aggro a little bit, pulls away immediately, allowing the back casters to move up slightly, potentially, if they do not, of course, lock aggro with this minion here. Renekton moves up, knowing that Yasuo's Q is down for a few seconds, giving some space. Yasuo's Q is now back up, having three casters next to him, knowing that there is a slight HP advantage, knowing that any auto trades Yasuo takes against Renekton will only really favor him, considering the fact that his minions will move closer to him, allowing him to get the CS, and then lastly, allowing him to get the empowered Q to then follow up damage. Renekton responding with a Q. As you can see, Renekton responds with the Q. Yasuo again responds back with the Q, having the slight range advantage. And we talked about this range advantage. And this is really because Yasuo can max range Q. and hit Renekton with relative ease and can space the Q early on. And Renekton, again, making sure we are working on the melee minions here because they are the closest to us. We do want to get that push lead going now. With our empowered Q coming up in 1 second, we know that Renekton, his eyes, his movements are really towards these two minions, and therefore any pocket that Renekton tries to take in order to attain these two blue casters, I'm using a blue circle to indicate the minions, the objective. So blue is the objective. This is the sorry, my writing's not the greatest, but this represents the objective, right? Whereas the purple or the pink here represents the pockets, right? So the pockets are relative to the goal being the minions here, the minions being the primary source of income for Renekton, and therefore we're going to use our Q and we're going to try to hit him and predict his movement the second he goes in for these two minions. And therefore to do that, we ourselves as Yasuo want to be able to move up in angles that allow us to achieve that goal. And as you can see here in this case, Dom1, mid laner here, SHOWMAKER, does exactly that, where he's moving in preemptively ready to use the Q. And of course, if he ends up landing the Q, then he backs up. His next move is, again, he's on cooldown. Renekton then moves up, tries to get, maybe he can thin this wave out a little bit. But our primary goal, again, is just going to be to hit these two frontline minions, make sure their HP is taken away, because we do want to get that slight push lead in the lane here. As you can see, exactly what he does. Renekton backs up, tries to find the Q, misses the Q, unfortunately. Bit of a misplay, but overall not a big issue. Now here immediately what we could find is an auto to the minions and then a Q onto Renekton at max range. So that's exactly what he does. He finds the auto, catches aggro slightly, and then ends up Qing the Renekton right at the end. So we're going to watch that one more time. Okay, so he autos, hits the Renekton. Renekton responds with a Q, grabs the minion, attempts to take out a bit of HP from SHOWMAKER's side here. As you can see, SHOWMAKER clicks back a little bit and then responds back with Q to get both the minion and potential damage on Renekton if Renekton ends up spacing next to the minion. As you can see, he does actually get a bit of damage off, which is really nice. Now, again, proccing aggression, having a +1 advantage on the side of red, knowing that Renekton should be able to hit level 2 after killing these 3 casters. But again, a very good lane state for Yasuo here, if he can go ahead and kill off these 2 minions here. Renekton, as you can see, reaching Fury stacks, finding the Q again. And now we're going to see level 2 come out very soon on Renekton's angle. So right after this next minion, Renekton's going to look for this auto. He's just constantly trying to auto get the minions low to get level 2. And even in this matchup, again, you have to be very careful. You have to make sure your clicks are very precise. Your clicks have to be very tight. They cannot be like wide-angled clicks, because you need to make sure you're spacing up and down and actually landing abilities. All that little small amounts of space that you need to utilize by moving up and down constantly is so important here, because that is the same amount of space that decides whether you get launched a Q to the face from Renekton, or if you can dodge and land your own Q off, eventually leading to an all-in, which is both of really what these champions do. They will look to try to whittle you down with small amounts of poke with their Q, and then eventually Renekton going in with E and then looking for the all-in with the W. And the same thing with Yasuo. They're both trying to find that small window of HP to then just all-in for lethal damage. Again, as you can see, SHOWMAKER here, really nice with the Q there, knows that Renekton's probably going to go and Q both these minions, and then goes ahead and Qs him, and ends up also getting the minion. So you can see the efficiency at which the Yasuo is playing the lane at, where he's able to get both the minion and get the damage off. And again, he's able to do this preemptively, knowing what Renekton should want to do in this lane. Now Renekton here, really simple, should just be looking to kill off this next melee here, because this will essentially get him level 2. And now Yasuo ends up doing the same, knowing that he's gonna end up losing 2. He decides to go ahead and start hard pushing. As you can see, both champions are, this is very conscious, by the way. This is all deliberate. We are both at a moment where both champions are going to hit level 2, right? This is very important to know when you're going to hit level 2, because if you're not having an XP lead, if the opposing laner gets the XP or level 2 on you, it is so awkward for you to play the lane, because then he can find bases on you that you can't really deny. right? Because what's essentially going to happen, let's say hypothetically that you do lose the level 2 here, and you don't actually walk up to hit these 2 minions here, as SHOWMAKER did, knowing full well that he needs to be able to match Renekton's 2, is if he's still level 1 and Renekton is level 2, Renekton will just move up and zone, and then he has the ability to stack the 3rd wave, and then, of course, by crashing the 3rd wave, it gives him autonomy in the lane. And we discussed in our previous videos about how autonomy can essentially allow you to do multiple things, whether you move into river. Of course, on the 4th wave is when usually crab is spawning, and so it gives you the autonomy to continuously have first action on the 4th wave, gives you the autonomy to move into the jungle, maybe for a potential invade on the side of Renekton, gives you the ability to even find a base timer. These are very crucial times that you want to be consciously aware of, mainly because it's going to be relatively hard to just simply sit under tower and try to harass the Yasuo as a melee champion. Now, of course, if you're a champion with higher range, again, that is also a potential possibility if you can just sit in tower and constantly brute force the opposing player's HP by just constantly crashing in and trying to get poke off. That's also a viable solution, except against Yasuo, it's going to be a little bit harder here. So here, and again, if it's very harder to like just stack these waves against Yasuo, you have to have the champion to do so. As you can tell, there's few champions in the game that are really hard to just stack waves against. 2 of those being Alawi, and then another one being Yasuo. A lot of mid lane champions struggle to find cheater recall, for example, which is in this a very standard example. Of course, you can cheater recall even after 3 waves, but a very standard cheater recall would be just to stack 3 waves and then shove, right? Of course, you can also stack 4 and shove, which is reality. It's just the same thing. In reality, it's the same thing, although this one, you know, it's just played at a different time. And that's obviously for like reasons on how the lane's going. We'll cover all that stuff in time. Anyway, so moving towards the level 2 spike here, I want you to really pay attention to SHOWMAKER's clicks here. This is a bit of an error here, I would say, mainly because there's really no reason to fight. The E into the Renekton here is a bit scary. So he E's into Renekton. Renekton goes ahead, pops his passive, gets the Q off. Renekton gets the Q off as well. So all in all, actually a losing trade for the Yasuo. And then, well, when SHOWMAKER does this stuff, we really want to consider, well, why is he trading? He's losing the trade, but is he achieving anything with the wave? Sometimes it's okay to lose the trade in order to gain a substantial benefit with regards to wave. But in this case, there really is nothing achieved from just going in and fighting the Renekton, mainly because it just doesn't change anything really in the lane. The lane is still pushing towards the Yasuo here. All in comes out, cleanses the ignite, flashes, finds the Q, Renekton immediately flashes. Again, this is a very interesting all-in by SHOWMAKER here. I think he could have found more benefit off of stacking his second Q and then using E. But this is also something. Doesn't unfortunately find the kill. And now has to base. And it's a little bit awkward to base here. This whole situation is just really awkward, because now what SHOWMAKER essentially needs is he needs his jungler to stand here, and hopefully he needs to try to crash this wave, but he can't crash this wave alone without dying, right? So what do you do here as a solo queue player? As a solo queue player in low elo, in this situation, if your jungler isn't challenger, or if your jungler isn't on the same page as you, the only other option, let's say your jungler just doesn't see this and isn't actually going to help you, is just to simply base, because you're never going to be allowed to do anything in the lane anyway. You're never going to be able to access these minions, considering these 2 extra casters on the blue side, they completely make the lane unplayable, mainly because it's just pushing into the Renekton here. And the lane's locking in a location where you're going to have to constantly be forced to play up in this zone of like danger, right? Like you don't want to be up here. And so the only other alternative other than basing would be to simply stand here or wherever his jungler is. Of course, I can't see the minimap here entirely. And simply just bait out a kill, because there is no other, you know, you have to kind of pray he all-ins you and your jungler can come and fight him. And if you can't do that, if you have no release in this lane, then you simply have to base. Again, this is really just a byproduct of the first trade that ended up not going so well for SHOWMAKER, where he ended up going in, took a bit of a flip trade, didn't really find any benefit off of it, and then unfortunately attempted to take the all-in at 2, traded summoners, unfortunately, against a champion that doesn't really even mind in this case, and having a really poor lane state. We can see that SHOWMAKER has put himself in a really, really awkward spot in the lane. So now this is really weird. Now we know Renekton is going to hit level 3 as well, so we must be careful, because he'll be able to access the frontline minions before Yasuo can move up. Okay, so Yasuo gets 3. Never mind, I guess the minions are kind of low. So Yasuo, so basically you get level 3 on the 3rd wave, 3 melees. But Renekton, if he does opt to push in, and again, the reason I'm telling you that Renekton hits 3 here first is because Yasuo has to kill off 3 minions, whereas Renekton has to kill off 2 minions. So theoretically, Renekton only really needs, like, he will hit 2 first, or 3 first. But as you can see, the way the minions align, it seems his SHOWMAKER's minions just end up dying a lot or not his minions, but Renekton's minions end up dying faster than SHOWMAKER's minions. And because this minion here dies too, he's able to hit level 3, but it doesn't really matter that he's about to hit level 3, mainly because in a few, essentially in a bit, what's going to happen here is Renekton's going to hit this minion enough times, he's going to get level 3, and just taking an all-in trade could actually just lead to a solo kill on the side of Renekton. So we want to be very careful when it comes to these things. Okay? This lane is very volatile. Let's keep watching. So again, really, really awkward lane. Renekton's able to hit level 3 also. Can't really do anything about it. Renekton, again, with Fury stacks, will do a lot more damage. And as you can see, the jungler ends up showing Kha'Zix jumps in with E. Unfortunately, again, even with bone plating, not able to survive the damage that Renekton has. And this is mainly because of his passive there, just really doing a lot of damage to SHOWMAKER. Unfortunately, not able to find a good state. And now, as you can see in this lane, it's actually not bad for SHOWMAKER. Although, you know, it's not great for his lane considering Renekton got gold. It did even out on the side of Kha'Zix, so it's great for Kha'Zix, I suppose, but not the greatest for SHOWMAKER's lane. However, it's not all that bad, mainly considering if you look at the wave here, right? The way the transaction happened between the 2 minions is you can see that the cannon minion on the side of red is a lot healthier than the side of blue, which means that the wave is actually coming into SHOWMAKER. This means essentially that Kha'Zix has another opportunity to potentially come down and find space to kill the Renekton, if possible. Okay, I'm gonna just fast forward this here, back to the lane. We see the wave coming in, and now again the goal is simply just to retain this lane state, making sure that it doesn't immediately crash. And if you're Renekton here, you want to just immediately try to crash the wave. You want to get this wave under the tower. And this is kind of where the danger zone is, where here you can move up, and as you can see, he's actually threatening it. And this is really interesting because by moving up and threatening the fact that, hey, I can all-in you here because my jungle is there if there's no vision, this in itself is enough to have Renekton second guess moving up, and therefore giving more time for the next incoming wave to slowly arrive. And then if the next incoming wave ends up arriving, then Renekton's going to have to kill off, you know, X amounts of minions here, plus the Y amount of minions that are returning. And this is only going to retain a favorable lane state on the side of Yasuo. And again, when you have these situations, when you have the ability to all-in and you know the enemy has no vision, then you can very easily start fake all-inning to try to get them to move away, and this is really just to make sure you're buying time. Now, of course, if Evelyn shows up, here Evelyn can hover. If an Evelyn hovers, then obviously Renekton doesn't have to worry too much, and then the goal between Evelyn and Renekton would be to make sure that they are able to crash these waves, or this wave specifically, into tower before the next incoming wave ends up locking, and again, delaying the lane even further for Renekton here. Opting to go for the attack speed because we are looking to rush Berserkers, which is a pretty good first buy on the Yasuo. Renekton force trades, as we can see Kha'Zix arrives. Very nicely executed. SHOWMAKER should be careful here. Looks for the Q, finds the kill. Beautiful again. Evelyn should have been able to hover, unfortunately, on the side of red. Or the, I guess it's technically the blue side. because we're technically playing in the perspective of red, even though we're blue. But you get the idea. It's just color perspective here. On the color of blue side, which is Renekton's side, Evelyn should have just been able to hover. Unfortunately, not able to find it. Again, a solo kill goes back, or not a solo kill, but a kill back onto the Yasuo, and here he opts to buy the pink ward, and he buys the dagger and boots. And his next buy is going to be consisting of the Berserker Greaves. And then using the pink ward again, when you have the priority, using this pink ward as a defensive ward if you, again, don't have the authority to simply just protect it. And a lot of the times when you think about authority, you're thinking like range versus melee, right? When you have a ranged champion that can constantly push in a melee champion without the immediate fear of getting all in, then you have the ability to, of course, place certain pink wards and then protect them. And I do go over a lot of these pink ward placements in my theory videos, and you can watch those in the previous 7 sessions there. But again, buying a pink ward is really, really okay to do. I don't recommend buying pink wards in low elo, mainly because it's a waste of gold, and usually the pink wards aren't utilized properly, or they're immediately taken out because of the randomness of and the chaos of the game itself. Pink wards, although in the highest levels of play, will find value, and again, really only finding value if you have the ability to properly protect them. Again, pink wards find value not off of just vision, but also off of longevity. Longevity and vision is what really gives the pink ward its value. Otherwise, if longevity wasn't really even the case, then I mean, you could just get away with a normal yellow ward. You need to make sure that you're able to protect your pinks, and if you can't protect your pink, then don't buy a pink ward, because it's essentially a waste of gold. You're losing 75 net gold, and then you're also you're giving like 25 gold to the opposing side, and really, or maybe it's like 30 gold to the opposing side, and you're losing about 100 gold total, because the opposing player gets 15 and then or 25, and you're getting you're losing like 75. So it's not very good. Of course, if you can defend them, you can find value in them. And again, now we can see the next incoming waves returning back into the Yasuo. And now Renekton looking for the all-in here, trying to actually, he's trying to trade against Yasuo, get his HP low so that he has an easier time crashing the next wave, because his goal is really just to make sure he's crashing the next wave. And this is, again, another opportunity for Kha'Zix to simply just show up and get all-in, mainly because here it's very easy to find the empowered Q into the all-in, into the EQ combo, and then Kha'Zix shows up, and then it's really easy to just kill the Renekton off. Again, as we can see, Renekton proccing his passive, getting rid of the wave, and then leaving. Warding to the bot side. This is very nice what he's doing, attempting to keep the line with the wind wall, taking the wave and then pulling it, allowing him to gain another favorable lane state on 4 casters. And this is not necessarily a permanent freeze, but a relatively temporary lane state, which could be quite beneficial, again allowing the side of red, in this case Dom 1, in this case SHOWMAKER, to again find a kill on this wave as well, because again Renekton is now forced to kill off the cannon wave, and had Yasuo not frozen the wave the way he did, then what would essentially happen in this lane state is the wave would be returning back into the Renekton, and Renekton would be quite happy. But in this case, Renekton is not happy, because he's forced to essentially take these again this giant wave of cannon just completely out and crash this wave into the tower. And this is really stressful for Renekton, because this is the same time when Kha'Zix comes. This is also a very good time, or a very good opportunity to force the opposing jungler into your lane. And a lot of people, they usually don't really like when they get ganked, but when you're getting ganked, it's actually pretty like good. If you know you're gonna get ganked and you see the gank coming, you can avoid it. And if you avoid it, your jungler or your team in general is slowly gaining tempo against the opposing player. It's really important to know, because every time a jungler ganks, they are losing something. They're essentially investing themselves into a gank. They're investing time and resources when they could be potentially farming. Now, of course, you know, jungle changes and all that stuff happen, and of course certain periods of time in where people will just continue to gank. That happens. Of course, there's other like certain seasons where people will be farming a little more. Of course, this is more dependent on like other reasons. So we're not really going to talk about it here. But generally, any jungler that is investing a gank, I'm not talking like Sylas. Okay, Sylas is just a flip champ, but at least in season 13, early season here, you can just kind of do whatever with catch-up XP and everything. But it's very crucial to understand, again, very fundamental about the game is if the jungler shows up to gank you, he is losing time in his own jungle to be doing other things. Anytime that your jungler makes a decision, anytime a jungler decides to help somebody, there is somebody else on that side of the map, on the other side of the map, that is going to be weakened for a short period of time. This is a very common concept understood in high elo. I talk about this a lot in my first video where I talk about strong side, weak side. The unfortunate issue with jungle, and this will always be a thing because this is what essentially makes the game. This is a very fundamental characteristic of jungle role, is every decision a jungler makes, there is somebody that he's going to hurt on his team. If he shows to top, then in some way, shape, or form, there is an opportunity of impact in bottom, and vice versa. And so you have to really be aware. Of course, junglers in low elo will be more arbitrary. Junglers in high elo will follow more of a model, more of a predictive model, and you'll actually understand the game more and more as you experience it and see it. But yeah, here again, considering the very nice freeze that SHOWMAKER decided to get on the Renekton, allowed him now to force Renekton to try to crash the next wave into him, and therefore again allowing Kha'Zix to find their potential opportunity onto the Renekton. This time, as you can see, Renekton is dead again. Oh no, we didn't miss it. Wow, I thought he missed it. That's actually interesting. Oh, he hit him right on the edge. Yeah, so the best way to dodge that is if you just click down here, but I don't think Renekton was able to do it quick enough. Yeah, it's kind of hard to dodge the Yasuo Q, I'll be honest. Gotta be a little bit careful. Again, Renekton actually ends up killing the Kha'Zix. Gets picked up by SHOWMAKER, and now SHOWMAKER is a bit of a stressful situation. Makes to make sure that, okay, well, Evelynn isn't actually 6 yet. I should well, she actually might be 6. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think she's 6 yet. She's probably still level 5. We need to like crash this wave now and just get out of this lane like immediately. So as you can see, SHOWMAKER just gonna obliterate the wave and then run away. There is Evelynn. She shows she's level 5. Should be able to hit level 6 maybe on this wave. Evelynn, again, a champion, probably not looking to, so she's not really looking to hold the wave, instead just take it, and that's also completely fine, mainly because she is reliant on her 6. In certain cases, you know, if the jungler can get 6 anyway, and, you know, he's not under too much stress, holding that wave, giving Renekton a favorable lane state will allow some more future value. But we're not going to say it here. And again, we are returning back to the lane. And as you can see, again, this is a very common example of getting a small advantage in the lane and then constantly using wave management or just how waves work to keep on finding solo kills against your lane opponent, especially as a champion that can all in very easily, like Yasuo. Okay, this was it for this short video. I will continue to make videos like this. Stay tuned. I will see you for the next video. Take care.